Alright, so in this video we're going to show you how to replace the oil pan gasket and the critical collar gasket on a 2008 Jeep Wrangler X model. We did take it out, as we told you in the last video last week, to try to see what was wrong with the Jeep. It's new for us and it's used, and we knew that it was going to take some work, and we found that there was a huge oil leak coming from the bottom, and that's the two components where the leak was occurring. So we figured we'd do a video and show you what we're doing to make those repairs. Okay, so we're under the Jeep right now, and as you can see all the oil, we've got an oil pan leak, and then there's like a plate that goes on the bottom by the engine block that's leaking also. So it wouldn't do any good doing an oil change without fixing that, so that's what we're doing now, is tearing the oil pan out, and we're gonna put a new gasket in there. There we go, nice black oil. Huh. All right, so Ray's got all the bolts out. And try to knock it off, and hopefully it'll come off easy. Not budging. Yeah, we'll have to go get a rubber hammer. There it comes. All right, oil pan's coming off. Voila. All right, looking up in there, it's actually very clean. That's exciting to see. All right, so here's the inside of the oil pan. We'll go ahead and drain what's left, and there is absolutely zero sludge in there, so I'm real happy to see that. So we're getting ready to pull this next piece down. I have no idea what it's called, but go ahead. There we go. All right, and then we got a couple more bolts under there to get that oil pan riser out. Well, it's coming off. Let me hold it. There you go. No problem there. All right, I'm going to let him take it off so we can video it. There you go. All right. Very nice. And take that gasket off then, and we've got a new one for up there as well. The joys of automotive. This is not just Jeeping, this is just automotive right here. Beautiful. All right, so we got all the parts off dealing with the oil pan. You can see it's been leaking for a while. Just nobody ever took the time to fix it, so we're fixing it now. So now we get to take time to scrape all this stuff down, clean it, get all the old gasket off, all the old oil off. It's going to take a while, but it's got to be done. All right, so we got everything clean. Took a while, but we're ready to begin putting all this back together now. And we've got a new oil pan gasket, and we've got the oil pan clean. There was no sludge in it, but we went ahead and cleaned it up real good. Got all the bolts cleaned, so we're ready to reassemble. Okay, so we're just going to dry fit the oil pan on to the critical collar, and that's how it's going to go. And then we got to use some RTV gasket maker. We're going to use high temp, so that we know it's not going to leak down the road. The critical collar has a gasket that goes onto the block that we bought. So we're going to show you how to make your gasket for the oil pan next. Go for it. All right, so Ray's just going to begin going around the edge of the oil pan with the gasket maker. I say this is high temp. All right, now Ray's going to take it and set it down onto the critical collar, and then we'll begin putting our screws in that. And he's going to use a sequence of the four corners, and then he'll go in the middle ones. So what we did, we put a mat under here so that as we begin torquing them, if that critical collar begins to move, it won't scratch the surface. Where we're going to put a gasket between that and the block. Now always thread these in by hand before you put a tool on it. That way you'll prevent any cross threading that could occur. If you can't get it to thread by hand after you've got everything cleaned, then the bolt is probably not in straight. So you can see he's going corner to corner on this. First, And then he's going to go center to center. And then he's going to fill the other ones in by hand and then retorque everything. Now the other thing you can see is if you go around the oil pan and the critical collar, you should see some of the gasket maker seeping out in all the areas, and that way that you know it's sealed. The corners were tightened, the centers were tightened, so now Ray's just going around the outside with all the fill-in ones, the fill-in bolts. Now he's going to go back by hand and just check each one individually. And he'll continue this process just like when he originally seated the oil pan onto the critical collar. Okay, now there's an O-ring for the oil pickup tube. We're going to go ahead and replace it. It comes with the gasket kit. So there's the O-ring that we're going to go ahead and replace. It comes with the kit. Okay, so when you do the O-ring, you just roll it on. There you go, just like that. Okay, so before we put all the pieces back on under here, we're going to go ahead and clean this. It needs to be good and dry to make a good seal. All right, so when you put this in here, make sure that O-ring is fully seated before you tighten it. So otherwise it'll pinch the O-ring and cause it to leak. Okay, now before you just stick the gasket on, there's some guide pins, and basically you just screw them into 4 corners. And this just holds the gasket on, which allows you to put the rest of the screws in, and then you'll take them out and replace them with screws. So we're just putting them in 4 corners. Now we're going to put some of the RTV gasket sealer between the front cover and the block. There's a gasket there, and that's a leak point that can cause some issues down the road. We're going to put it on both sides. Matter of fact, we had leaking coming from that area that we saw when we took this off. Then we're going to come back here where the block connects to the transmission, and there's a cover there as well, and we're going to put some in there as well, in that little crack in between to seal. All right, now we're going to put the gasket on. Use your guides. That's what's going to help hold it on in place, keep it from dropping back down on you. All right, there you go. And then push it all the way up till it's flush. And now we can put the entire oil pan assembly back on. Okay, now we're going to put some anti-seize stick on here, some thread stick on all these, just a little bit before we put it back together. So just going through all the bolts to do this with. All right, so coming under the Jeep, we also put on the 2 bolts that are coming out of the block, we put anti-seize stick on those as well. So Ray's putting the pan on. Use the guides. That'll also hold the pan in place for a one-man job of doing this. And then he's going to put basically 4 corners in, 1 corner at a time, crisscrossing, and snug them down. And then he'll do the let me hold that for you, and then he'll do the center ones as well. There we go. Now he's going to snug those down, not completely, but just to seat the oil pan assembly. Actually, it's the critical collar that he's seating because the oil pan's already been dealt with. And you notice he went in a star pattern again, just like he did with the oil pan. And once again, he made sure that the bolts went in by hand before he put the wrench on it, so as not to cross thread anything. Now we got to take the guide pins out. That's what he's doing, trying to do up there. If I need a screwdriver to get these out, they get pretty tight because that gasket is now compressed on them. I got one out. I'm gonna have to get a screwdriver for the other one, unless you can get it.
Which one?
That, not that one.
The one back here?
Yeah.
Yeah, that one.
So this one I'm having, that one's tight, real tight.
Yeah, pliers might be easier.
Okay. Okay, next he's going to hand thread the rest of the screws in all the way around the critical collar. And don't forget the nuts in the front. Okay, now he's going to tighten all those up. And then he's going to torque to specification all the way around. Okay, now we're installing transmission adapter plate. It's actually pretty easy, just slides in there. A lot cleaner than before now. We don't have oil dripping out all over the place. Again, be sure to put these in by hand first. All right, so now he's doing final tightening on that. Okay, and then make sure you tighten your drain plug also. So we finished replacing the critical collar gasket, making the seal for the oil pan. We tightened up the drain plug. As you can see, I cleaned the bottom of the engine here, the bell housing and all that. It looks real nice. We can now easily see new leaks. Hopefully there won't be any new leaks, but I mean, we'll be able to easily see them. And then this is a good time also to perform a full oil change while you're at it. So that's what we did. There's a new filter that we put on there, and then refill it, of course, after you do all of that work, or refill it with oil after you do all of that work. All right, that was a completion of the pan gasket replacement to get rid of the oil leaks that we discovered in Mudbug as we were driving around, you know, just trying to find out things that might be wrong with it. So hope that helps you, and also be sure to hit the subscribe button and keep following us at mudbugadventures.com.